Coming up on the DLLS Mavs podcast, what have we learned through 11 games so far this season? Plus, Tim Cato joins us live from San Francisco as we discuss the Mavericks and what they've gone through so far this season. All that and more coming up next year on the DLLS Mavs podcast. Hey, what's up, DLLS Mavs Nation? It's your man, Kevin Gray, alongside Mavericks analyst Bobby Carella. We are DLLS Mavs, your favorite guys covering your favorite team every single day. You can find me on X at Kevin Gray Sports, at Bobby Carella, and for our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato, you can find him on X at Tim_Cato. He'll be joining us in our next segment live from San Francisco after the Mavericks fell last night to the Golden State Warriors 120-117. What have we learned so far through the first 11 games of this season, and what the hell is going on with this offense as we try to dissect with the Mavericks being off today before they finish up their 3-game road trip tomorrow on the road in Salt Lake City against the Utah Jazz. So much to get to over the next hour. Appreciate you joining us here in our chat as well. You can like, comment, and subscribe to DLLS Sports here on YouTube for the DLLS Mavs podcast as well. Bobby, what's going on this Wednesday? I feel like we were just here not that long ago.
Yeah, Kevin, the same thing was going on about 12 hours ago whenever we were wrapping up postgame. We had an all-staff meeting this morning. What a lovely way to bounce back from that disaster last night, and I'm just ready for something good to happen in my life right now.
Yeah.
I just need something good.
Yeah, after last night, we're definitely looking for something good. Hopefully that'll come in the form of a win tomorrow when the Mavericks take on the Utah Jazz before they come home to take on Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs this upcoming weekend. I mean, but let's just dive into it. Obviously, last night, a difficult night for the Dallas Mavericks, who were up 7 with less than 4 minutes to go in the game. Unfortunately, not able to handle their business in the clutch. And, Bobby, one of the things, I went back and watched the last 5.5 minutes of the game. You said, Kevin, why in the world would you torture yourself after what you saw last night? But I wanted to try and figure out, what has been going on with this team offensively down the stretch. And one of the things that kind of bothered me, and I'm sure it bothered a lot of our Mavericks fans who are in the chat already. I see you there, Ronald. I see you there, Ben. I appreciate all y'all joining us so far. Is it felt like there was a lot of isolation, not a lot of cohesion offensively, and not a lot of movement on that side of the ball when it counted for it most down the stretch. And the shot selection was not great again, which is something that's unfortunately become a theme for this team, especially in critical moments of basketball games.
I'm not going to knock any team too much for running a lot of ISO late in games because that's just generally what you do. I mean, Steph destroyed the Mavs in isolation last night. His dagger was an ISO. He got a ball screen to get a switch, which is the same thing the Mavs do. And then he went to work on Lively and danced and danced and danced until there was just enough space for him to get off the dagger. That's what almost every team does late in games. And coaches, really smart coaches, Rick Carlisle, offensive mastermind, will tell you late in games, if you call a play, so not in a huddle, if a coach calls a play or a player calls a play, the other team knows what you're running. They're going to sit on it and they're going to wipe it out. And then it's going to be isolation anyway, and you'll have less time to work with. So the Mavs have built a team featuring Luka and Kyrie, two of the best isolation players of all time. They can, or in theory, can get a good shot against anybody, whether they're smaller, bigger, taller, faster, whatever. Longer wingspan, doesn't matter. Luka and Kyrie should be able to cook. That's the idea. We have not seen that. We also haven't seen the Mavs play good, fundamentally sound one-on-one defense late in games. There's been defensive breakdowns in isolation situations. So they're not executing well on either side. So I'm not going to knock them for running ISOs. I'm not going to knock them for not running set plays. What I am going to knock them for is Luka and Kyrie. If that's what you're going to do, then you got to be able to do it. And how many good shots? You went back and rewatched it. How many good shots did the Mavs? I even said it with 3.5 minutes left. I said, how many good shots are they going to get the rest of the game? The answer in my memory was 0, but you went back and
0.
rewatched it. What was the real answer?
Yeah, I would agree. It was 0. I mean, you didn't score for 3 minutes until the three-pointer that Quentin Grimes hit with 20 seconds left.
That wasn't really a good shot.
And that really wasn't a good shot either. And he was able to knock it down, and really that could have been a foul call on the three-point shot. But at the same time, there was a lot of force-feeding to Daniel Gafford in those moments as well, repeatedly trying to get him involved in the offense. And I felt like there were times where the Mavericks could have gotten a little bit better shot and a little bit better creation in terms of their offensive movement. But for some reason, and I know Gafford, from the box score, obviously was really good last night, but down the stretch, I need Luka and Kyrie to be able to initiate offense that not only is good for themselves in terms of the shots that they get, but for other guys as well because of the amount of attention that the two of them create. And it felt like there was a lot of forcing to Daniel Gafford when I didn't necessarily like that in that particular situation there.
If you are going to do Luka on an island or Kyrie on an island, and you don't want to introduce a ball screen because that could lead to some blitzing, to some double teams, to some weird stuff where now all of a sudden you're giving it to Gafford 20 feet from the rim and he's got to make a decision with 4 seconds, whatever. If you are going to do player on an island one-on-one, that guy has to go toward the basket.
Mm-hmm.
The closest Luka or Kyrie got to the rim in the final 5 minutes of the game, if I'm not mistaken, was that Luka fall away from the free throw line with like 35 or 40 seconds left or whatever, which was an okay shot, but that was a heavily contested turnaround fadeaway from 16 feet. In my opinion, that's not a great shot. Luka can always get better than that. Luka and Kyrie, unfortunately, especially over the last 3 games, have settled for jumpers. There's nothing going toward the rim. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to force the defense to react, if you're trying to create a good shot, you got to make something happen. Even if that means Luka or Kyrie putting the ball on the floor to attack the rim and attracting attention to where they cannot take the shot. Even if that means now I have to kick it out to Najee Marshall for an open 3, or Quentin Grimes, or Klay effing Thompson for an open 3. Like, you're forcing the defense to do something. And if they don't react, if Luka gets past Andrew Wiggins and gets all the way to the basket and there is no help, Luka's going to score or he's going to draw a foul. Kyrie will finish. Like, good things happen for the Mavs and for every team in the NBA when the ball touches the paint, and the ball just did not touch the paint. The only time it did is when they're force-feeding Daniel Gafford to commit a charge, which I don't necessarily agree with, on Draymond Green, or later to get it completely annihilated at the rim by Draymond Green. Authoritatively blocked, or a turnover going to Gafford. 3 trips in a row. Stop doing it. Be smart. Be smart. I praise Kyrie all the time, and Luka's a genius too, but I praise Kyrie in particular for having just mastered the game. Like, he knows everything. He is such a high IQ player, and he's got to know good things happen when you play smart. Good things happen when you take what the defense gives you. Good things happen whenever you capitalize on mismatches. It doesn't feel like they're in attack mode. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, your card is upright, that's attack mode. It's side on its side, that's defense mode. They're playing crunch time in defense mode. No, man, you're Kyrie Irving, you're Luka Doncic. I need you to attack. Go on the aggressiveness.
Go on the offensive.
Yes, go do something. Yes. Force them to do something.
Yeah.
Take matters into your own hands. Don't just sit back in a shell for 23 seconds and then take some garbage. You're better than that.
Yeah, I want to put up the comment that they're from Deathmatch in it because I found it very interesting. It says, this team is good enough to involve all 5 guys in a play to win the game, in his opinion, which in a lot of ways it felt like it was a lot of go get it yourself, Luka. Go get it yourself, Kyrie. A lot of isolation and not a lot of movement from other guys. When you have an opportunity to have the attention on those two, move, maybe create some extra pressure, make the defense try to make some different decisions. But with everyone kind of just standing around, the Warriors can just stand around and not have to worry about anyone making any kind of movements to put pressure on the defense because they know that they're just going to watch Luka and Kyrie try to dance and get them something, in terms of the shots that are either going to fall or not. But I do agree in a lot of the point that they're making is get all these guys involved and create more pressure on the defense to give yourself a chance down the stretch.
I kind of disagree because the more you try and coordinate stuff, the more things can go wrong late in games. Again, Luka one-on-one, he should be able to score more than 50% of the time, and historically he has. Kyrie one-on-one, he is generating more than 1 point per possession. He's scoring more than half the time. That is really good. If the Mavs scored on half of their crunch time possessions this season, they would be undefeated in clutch games. Instead, they're 1-5. I mean, this team won 72% of their clutch games last season. They have won 16% of their clutch games this year. They did the same exact stuff last season, but it worked because Luka and Kyrie are able to generate good shots. And more importantly, the defense was able to create stops.
Yeah.
And the crunch time defense has been a complete and abject failure so far. So, for as much time as we spend talking about shot selection and lack of coordination or whatever, I would say more attention should be paid to their misgivings on the defensive end because they have not been able to produce stops when they need them. And unfortunately, they've committed so many mistakes earlier in games that instead of protecting leads down the stretch, with last night being the exception, they are playing from behind or playing from a drawn position.
Mm-hmm.
Last season, so many of their clutch games, they were up 4 with 5 minutes left. Now this year, they're down 4. That is a huge tonal shift in the game. That is a huge shift. You're not protecting anything. You have to go get it. You have to go force something to happen. You have to force a stop. You have to force a bucket. Last year, they could just kind of chill out, and it was all good.
Yeah.
They could get fouled on purpose, go to the free throw line, ice the game. This year, no. And they just haven't been able to do it.
Klay Thompson, who had 22 points last night, speaking to some of those late game struggles and what he is seeing, but proud of the fight of the Mavericks so far in these situations. Take a listen.
I know we've had like 4 games this year where it could have gone either way. Tonight, this one really stung, being up 7, under 4 minutes left. We'll watch the film and get better. But I am really proud of how this team keeps fighting. We're still getting to know each other, and I keep telling the guys it's better to go through this stuff early in the season versus game 60. So I know we have a chance to be great, and we just got to stay the course.
And that's hopefully one of the silver linings of what the Mavericks have gone through in terms of these early season struggles in the clutch, is that they are continuously finding themselves in these games late. They've lost their last 3 games by a combined 6 points. So trying to hopefully get this out of their system early on so that by the time you get toward the end of the regular season and obviously into the playoffs, you're able to be better in these moments. So Klay speaking to some positivity in terms of how these games have gone, potentially either way for the Mavericks. Hopefully that's something that they can learn right now to be able to take with them for the rest of the year.
Yeah, we'll get more into this in the next segment,
Mm-hmm.
talking about some of the stuff, lessons that we've learned so far, and kind of our overall takeaways. But I think the through line of the post game last night and of the post games throughout the last few games, and the frustrations among the fans and among us here, because dude, like, this sucks. Watching losing sucks.
It does.
The main thing is, like, I understand that it takes time to gel. It takes time to come together. The Mavs don't have time. The Mavs were the best playoff crunch time team in the league last season. The Lakers were the only team that had a higher win percentage in crunch time than the Mavs. And that it got exponentially better after the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Mavs should not be having to learn how to win games. Luka and Kyrie know how to close games. The Mavs have done it. They were in the finals 5 months ago. Like, it seems like they're starting at square one. They should be starting at like square 7 or square 8, and that is the frustrating thing. Like, it's good that Klay is kind of like not just smashing the panic button or anything.
Sure.
Klay knows how to win. Kyrie knows how to win. Luka knows how to win. Klay's never played with them, but Luka and Kyrie have played together. A lot of these guys were here last year. Like, it's just, it's a good mindset, I guess, and like what he's saying is objectively true, but it's like, I just don't buy that. Like, that you don't have the time to be like,
It's true.
oh yeah, we're just figuring it out. It's better now than later. Like, no, buddy, it sucks right now. You're in 12th place right now.
Yeah,
like,
you
is
got
that
the same
good?
amount
Are
of
y'all
wins as
happy with
Spurs
that?
right now. Yeah, like
This is a results business.
Yeah, and the results have not been great for the Mavericks of the first 11 games because, as you mentioned, the West right now is cooking for the top 6 teams, top 6, 7, 8 teams really on all cylinders right now. And the way that they're playing, you don't have time to show the kind of patience that you need to, that you may want as you go through the season, because time is a ticking, even just 11 games into the season. More on what we've learned so far this season through the first 11 games for the Dallas Mavericks is our Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato will join us coming up next year on the DLLS Mavs Podcast. But I need to talk to you about some goals first, and you can meet these goals with Constant Contact. How are you tracking with the ones that you set for your business earlier this year? Are you close? If not, do you know why you haven't met those goals yet? We all got goals. Bobby's got goals. I got goals. Tanner's got goals. Mavericks got goals to try to win an NBA championship. And right now, you and I could probably use, and the Mavs could use, some Constant Contact as well. We all have our year-end goals, and Constant Contact has what it takes to help you meet them faster. No matter how experienced you are with digital marketing, Constant Contact has the tools to make your marketing run even smoother. Sell more, raise more, and build more genuine relationships with your audience with Constant Contact suite of digital marketing tools, all made to fast track your success. So it's time to put the go in your 2024 business goals with email, social, SMS, and customized marketing campaigns built for you in just a few clicks. Ready, set, go to constantcontact.com/AllCity and start your free trial today. Go to constantcontact.com/AllCity for your free trial today.
It is a sunny and beautiful day outside, and nothing makes you look better or feel better than a pair of Shady Rays. Their premium polarized shades won't even break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by more than 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. I wear Shady Rays all the time when I'm walking about town, when I'm driving. I have really sensitive eyes, very sensitive to light and sunlight, and those things help me out a ton. And if you're anything like me, you're a forgetful guy, or maybe you're a little clumsy. Hey, you lose your shades or you break them, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code DLLS for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Again, DLLS to save yourself some cash. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by more than 300,000 people.
What have we learned so far through the first 11 games of the season for your Dallas Mavericks as they continue their road trip as they go to Utah tomorrow in Salt Lake City before they come back this weekend to take on Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs? We are now joined by our Mavericks beat writer. You can find him on X at Tim_Cato. He is, of course, Tim Cato. Tim, what's going on?
Hello, friends. You said it's sunny there?
It is.
It is.
Oh, it's a cool overcast 55 here in San Francisco where I still am.
Okay.
Is that a flex or is that like sad?
Yeah, I don't really know.
Like you set it up as if it was, and then it kind of was. It kind of tailed off in the end there.
It's a how do you say that? Rorsch, man, I don't know. The blobs, the black blobs that you can interpret however.
Dude's never watched The Watchmen, and it shows. Who watches The Watchmen? Not Tim.
I did.
Oh,
I just forget the name of it.
I'm
I'm bad at pronouncing my R's.
Mm.
That's why I went to speech therapy as a child. That's why I can't read ads. Yeah, when I was like 5 or 6, they're like, he's never going to be good at reading ads. So my parents sent me to speech therapy.
You got to prove those haters wrong, man.
Well, that means you can just do all the reading.
I don't have any chances today.
Oh, Joel, if you would like a chance, we could definitely give you one. If
no,
you like.
yeah,
Okay.
you got it. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
15 minutes.
Well, let's talk about what we've learned so far through the first 11 games of this season. Tim, obviously, they're in San Francisco. One of the things I feel like we've learned, shout out to Jason. You can throw up Jason's comment real quick. Jason Gallagher in the chat with us as well. He says,
Jason?
Goodness, Tim, good gracious, when it comes to your reading abilities, apparently.
Whatever,
I guess.
Jason.
We've learned so far that the Mavericks have not been good in the clutch, and unfortunately that popped up again last night as they fall to now 1-5 in clutch games so far. If you had to pick one or two things that you've learned so far through the first 11 games of the season, Tim, what would they be and why for this Mavericks squad?
Well, wait, is this a setup for me to talk about the clutch? I heard you guys talking about it. I guess the one thing I wanted to add, and it's better to add it the day after because nobody wants to hear this the night of. Clutch performances can be kind of random. Like, it's such a small sample size, and I don't know. I just look at a team that was good at this. I look at a team that has not been blown out, has not lost to a bad team. You could argue about Houston. That was probably their worst loss of the season. Not emotionally, but in terms of, damn, I thought this team was, expected more from them. You look at the past 3 games, and they're decided by 6 points in total. And, yeah, they genuinely could have gone another way. Bobby's right. This is a results business. Things have to speed up. Things have to be better. The team being 5-6 is, so far off of what we thought the team would be at this point. But I also saw you tweeting some hope, Bobby, last night.
You got to huff a little bit of hopium, dude. I can't go to bed sad.
Yeah, it's you know, if you want to call it cope, that's fine. But I think the hope is fair. I think that this team, again, I stand by the fact that I have not seen this team. I've not seen anything from this team that genuinely is shaking, expectations or beliefs I had for them before the season. Even though things are, disappointing right now. They're not dire, they're not dismal, they're disappointing. And like the time to turn it around is right now. They've got 2 games they should win coming up, 2 games against weaker opponents. They've got Oklahoma City coming up, and Oklahoma City is going through it with injuries. And then the game after that, what was it? New Orleans. New Orleans is also very much going through it with injuries. So you've got 2 teams that are just not as talented as you, and then 2 teams that are, not at full strength. These are opportunities where Dallas should be able to go in, maybe win 4 straight. I don't want to look too far ahead, and I don't want to say that 4 straight wins.
He called it.
I've called things before. Sure, I'll
call
it.
Coward.
I think I think it's decently likely that they win 4 in a row.
That's
and
decent.
that here in a weekish, or not even a week, these games are coming quick. That things look very different, that things feel and sound very different about the Dallas Mavericks. And look, they need to do that. I mean, there's now is the time to do all that. It's just I am finding it hard to overreact to anything so far. I think that 11 games in, 15 games in, that's the point where you can overreact. I just made that up, but that's something I've always believed as of
I got
a couple minutes ago. That 15 games in, you can overreact.
At least it's not the Christmas mark or something like that.
I got a couple stats for y'all if you'd like. So, clutch games are essentially, in most situations, they're going to be coin flips, right? One bounce there, one missed cut there. It's all these little tiny things, and you can sort of stack the deck. You can add an extra 7 into that deck, or you can take out an 8 to tilt the odds a little bit in your favor. But it's a detail-oriented proposition. This season so far, Mavs have, in 22 clutch minutes, so again, in over 6 games, this is about 3.5, 4 minutes per game, a 135.6 defensive rating, which is a bottom 5 mark. They have a 13.6% turnover rate, which is a bottom 10 mark. This is a team that does not turn the ball over very often, but they turn it over about 1 out of every 7 trips down the floor in crunch time. And there are a couple that stand out. Kyrie dribbling into traffic for no reason against the Suns. Luka had a couple real bad ones last night. The team had a couple real bad ones last night. And then the most damning one, a 55.6% defensive rebound rate in the clutch. They are getting 5 out of every 9 available defensive rebounds. They are grabbing, including their offensive rebound opportunities, only 2 out of every 5 rebound chances in the clutch. Rebounds are possession of the ball. Situational rebounding is super duper important. And so, whenever you're giving your opponent a lot of second chances, whenever you're giving your opponent a lot of free chances because you're turning it over too often, like those are the kinds of things that are going to bite you whenever it is basically just a heads or tails situation, which these 3 games have all been. Last season, not the case. Mavs are a great crunch time team. They never turned it over. They made all their free throws. They were coming up with crucial stops. They were rebounding the ball. This year, no, it just hasn't been the case. So on the one hand, it is very damning because it's like, oh my God, they didn't give away 3 games, but they really should have won at least one of these. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
But it could very easily, with just a little more, with dotting one I and crossing one T, it could very easily turn around to where 3 weeks from now we look back, we're like, hey, remember whenever they sucked in the clutch? I don't. Like we could just move on that quickly.
How much, Bobby, do you agree? And I brought this up a little bit last night, and what Daniel Gafford said about it, and his diagnosis was it just was effort, but I don't think the perimeter defense has been good enough, and I think it's having a trickle down effect on the ability for Dallas to get rebounds. The more you get blown by, the more your teammates have to react to the fact that your man is now past you, and all of a sudden players are not in the positions not necessarily like wound up in expecting the box out, the rebound positioning. And I think that's a lot of the issues that we're seeing with the rebounding, beyond the fact that, Derek Lively and PJ Washington just missed some games.
I guess what's concerning for me, specifically with Gafford, watching the game last night, I mean, Kevon Looney is in there destroying him on the offensive glass. I mean, Kevon Looney had 9 offensive rebounds, and we're talking about a player that said that he added 20 pounds of muscle on during the summer, and it feels like at times the boxing out or whether it's an ability or an effort, whatever the case may be, it's not happening, and that's concerning for a guy that's going to be dependent upon to be able to close out these kinds of possessions with rebounds to be able to help this team in clutch situations. And that simply hasn't been the case when last year with Lively and Gafford, we know how good they were in terms of the rebounding and the effort they were putting in on that defense or that on that end in terms of, getting defensive rebounds. And I want to go back to something real quick that, you guys have started to touch on because you talked about the amount of turnovers that this team is having in clutch time, which is interesting.
That's why passing the ball late in games is really dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. But and to the point of getting other guys involved in the offense. But the Mavericks are number 1 in the NBA right now in terms of turnovers per game. They're averaging less than 12 turnovers per game. But the amount of turnovers that they're having in those clutch moments really just underscores how much you've got to be able to value the basketball in the moments that matter most, because they're not doing it right now, even though they're number 1 in the NBA in terms of turnovers per game. That kind of stood out to me as you were rattling some of that off. Like, where is the composure for this team in the final 4 and 5 minutes of games versus what it is, I guess, in the first 43 minutes or so of games?
There's a lot of number 1 in a good way.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
right.
number 1 in a good way in terms of fewest
listening.
turnovers.
Yeah. Now their rate in the clutch is not number 1 in a very bad way.
Yes.
But it all depends on like the nature of the game, right? But one other through line of these last 3 games is that Luka's playing over 40 minutes. Kyrie's playing over 35 minutes. It's still early in the season. Luka's already banged up. They're probably physically and mentally exhausted by the ends of these games. And so putting them through the ringer where Kyrie's now he's got to make something happen because no one else can. Luka's having a bad game, or Luka's got to make something happen, but he's already gassed, or Daniel Gafford's got to make a stop, but he's got 5 fouls. Like they're all kind of running on fumes by the end of the game, and all of this ties back to poor starts because they've spent the whole game in pursuit of the lead that they blew in the first quarter.
Yeah.
They got outscored by the Warriors last night by 23 points combined in the first 6 minutes of the first and 6 minutes of the third quarter, 42-19 in a 12-minute span to start each half. That means they went plus 20 the rest of the game, right? But that means they had to work their asses off to get to within one shot, to where at the end of the game, Kyrie's got nothing left in the tank against Phoenix, and he hoists an air ball with his last shot. Luka's game-tying shot, which was very ill-advised in my opinion, way too early in the clock, did not even hit the rim. Like, these guys are gassed, but so like you're stacking the deck against yourself to where crunch time failures in one sense could be the end result of mistakes earlier in the game. It's not just isolated to that one situation. So like Tim, while I agree crunch time is very random, inconsistent from year to year, oftentimes failures and like teams who fail in the clutch fail for a reason. It's not like just some random thing where you play great for 46 minutes and then blow it. It's usually because you made some mistakes and now you're kind of like reaping what you sowed.
Yeah. There's been a lot of the guards, the bench guards playing, like for as much as the bench guards have been playing, Luka and Kyrie's minutes should not be this high, or vice versa. The bench guards should not be playing that much if you're just doubling down on let's put more guards, more ball handling, more shot creation out there. But we still can't, but they're not actually doing that. So we actually can't get Kyrie and Luka off the court. I think that's definitely a factor. You also touched on the last shot. I agree. Look, they needed a 3. So in that situation, you're not going to take a 2. I still think it's easier to create a 3 if you get inside the arc. And then all of a sudden, you have a lot more options to pass out. It's a lot harder for defenses to track a guy inside the arc, which they have to be doing because they have to know where the pass is coming from. While also three-point shooters are relocating, running around the perimeter. That to me, they had enough time. That to me is an easier way to get a 3-point shot. The other thought I had was there's a really good joke made on Twitter last night by Josh Bowe, longtime Mavs Moneyball editor, writer, person. He said the Mavericks are getting out-rebounded so bad by the Warriors and Kevon Looney that they're going to go sign JaVale McGee next summer.
Oh, I have to laugh to keep from crying.
Too soon.
Too soon. Too soon.
I said, to be fair, that was very validating for me because I spent the entire 2022 offseason and that whole series as a Mavs employee streaming after every game, telling people this is not Dwight Powell's fault. It's not Maxi Kleber's fault. And what do you know? They get two big-bodied guys and Kevon Looney works them again.
Destroys them anyway.
So just victory lap for me.
For you, for sure. Let's take our next break here on the DLLS Mavs Podcast. More with our guy, Tim Cato, who is live in San Francisco as we continue to discuss what more we have learned, including what has been the first quarter struggles for this team so far this year. All that and more coming up next year on the DLLS Mavs Podcast. But it's game time here on the DLLS Mavs Podcast. We know you love going to events. I love going to events, concerts, games. I've got the perfect app for you when it comes to Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting your tickets for your favorite live events even easier. You get the super deal. You can get seat views before you buy your tickets as well. Get a panoramic view of where you're going to be sitting so you can have a really good idea of where you want to sit and the price that you'll be going to pay as well. They have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So make sure you take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. I use Game Time because I'm going to WrestleMania in April. I was able to see where I was going to be sitting inside of Allegiant Stadium, and Game Time was able to help me pick out the seats that I wanted. So make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code DLLS for 20% off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DLLS for 20% off. Download Game Time today. Bobby, what time is it?
Game time?
Yeah. Shout out to you, Kat. Shout out to you.
Did the mics pick that one up?
I hope so.
That was authoritative.
That was great, Kat. That was
Good job,
great.
Kat. Good job,
That's
off
right.
mic, Kat.
Let's go.
With Empire today, hey, you get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a low price guarantee. Empire today is the best place to get new flooring. So, of course, they got copycats, but Empire can't be beaten on quality, service, or speed. And so all these competitors out there kind of advertise low-quality, bunky-bunk products that Empire simply won't carry. Empire's not going to promise you the lowest prices because anyone who does that is putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in theirs. So give Empire a chance. Their philosophy is to help find you what you need, not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. What they leave out of their selection is just as important as what they put into it. So schedule a free no estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use the promo code DLLS. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/DLLS for details.
Appreciate all of you joining us here on the DLLS Mavs Podcast. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to DLLS Sports here on YouTube as we welcome back in our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato, who is in San Francisco before he returns home here to Dallas as the Mavericks get ready to finish up their 3-game road trip. They'll be taking on the Utah Jazz tomorrow night. Then they welcome in their in-state rival, San Antonio Spurs, with Victor Wembanyama. By the way, quick update when it comes to around the NBA and Greg Popovich specifically. He had suffered a mild stroke on November the 2nd, but the team putting out a statement today saying that he will make a full recovery going forward. So all the best to Greg Popovich as he recovers from what was reported to be a mild stroke that he suffered on November the 2nd. So again, all the best to him as he recovers from that. As again, we have Tim Cato here, who is in San Francisco. We're discussing what we have learned so far through the first 11 games of this season. And gentlemen, one of the things that we have discussed quite a bit so far this year for this team that continues to pop up, and Bobby, you started to mention it from last night's game as well, the first quarter struggles for this team and not getting off to good starts. We've seen some folks in our chat be able to put that in as well. You can also let us know how you're feeling about what you've learned for the first 11 games. Tim, I'll start with you. When it comes to these starts, what have you seen in terms of the common denominator, if there is one, in the early first quarter struggles for this team so far this year?
I mean, last night, a lot of it was just that in the first and the third quarter, that's when you play against Steph Curry. And in the second and the fourth is when he usually comes out and takes some rest. But look, obviously it's a bigger trend. It's a bigger issue that has been ongoing for a bit now. I guess a lot of it is Luka to me. Not even Luka's been bad. We have obviously had some criticisms of him this season, but it's that in last season, he was averaging something like 12 points in first quarters. He would make it his own, and that's not happening in the same ways. So that stands out to me. Yes, Luka, Jason Kidd has actually made a point to, there's been this whole like swell of Luka's not playing point guard this year, which is wrong and silly, but his touches are down. His time of possession is down. He's not dribbling quite as much. I think a lot of that is just that he is sharing the duties of bringing the ball up the court with more players by design, and then the ball gets to him later in the possession. But I think you see that the most in the first quarter, and that's something that Jason Kidd talked about before the game yesterday, before Tuesday's game, and for him, Jason Kidd described it as an idea that it's just easier for Luka when he doesn't have 18 seconds every possession where he is guarded by, shielding, fending off a big defender, typically the team's best defender against him. And getting him off the ball is a way to just kind of get him to spots better. But even then, Jason Kidd acknowledged that, if the first quarters won't improve, maybe there is some room to go back to what was, what worked best last season. I'm not sure it's a one-to-one thing. In fact, I'm quite sure. I don't think that if you just give the ball and Luka brings the ball up every single time in the first quarter, I'm not positive that's going to fully change what's happening out there. But whatever it takes, I do think it's important that Dallas finds a way to get Luka going a little bit sooner, or maybe you look at it differently. Maybe it's Kyrie Irving who gets the first few possessions of the game. You want some energy? You want like a quicker tone setting tempo? Yeah, Luka's the best. He's the team's best player, and he's going to end up with the most shots and usually the most points and the most influence over a game. But there's nothing wrong with looking at Kyrie Irving, who is very adaptable and very often slides into whatever is needed from him, and just having the offense run through him for just 4 minutes, just 4 or 5 minutes until he subs out. And then by then the idea, the hope, if Dallas were to do this, would be that the offense is in a rhythm and the starts are just look better.
Mavericks are 24th in offensive rating in the first quarter, 104.6, which for reference is like that's a really bad number. They're also bottom 10 in defense in the first quarter, and again, offense and defense are so related. If you're constantly allowing points on defense, it's harder to get offense because then you're not going against a 5-on-4 or 4-on-3 or 3-on-2 in the open floor. You're not creating mismatches. It's taking longer to get the ball up the floor, less time to create a good look. And then likewise, if you're not scoring on offense, it's harder to get back on defense because then you are going to have cross matches. You're going to be missing a layup or missing a corner three. It's tougher for you to get back. You got further to go. Takes more out of you. Fast break, allowing fast break points, very debilitating, very demoralizing. It's like these things just feed off each other, and I would say, like last night, for example, in the first quarter, the Warriors started the game really hot. I wouldn't say that the Mavs are playing necessarily bad defense. The Warriors scored 22 points in the first 6 minutes or whatever because they were just bombing threes. It is what it is. I don't think the Mavs offense was very good. I think they were forcing a little too much through Klay early. In the third quarter, though, the Mavs offense was getting the defense punished. I mean, it was turnovers, inexplicable like lobs on the fast break, like really weird stuff.
I think Luka threw a lob to Klay on a fast break attempt.
Yeah, like which is just like what? Are you like? That's completely like what are you doing? And those kinds of things are completely they are destroying your defense because it's the Warriors had 12 fast break points in the third quarter alone. I mean, and almost all of those came in the first 5 or 6 minutes. So a lot of early game stuff. This is like the most cliche thing, but early game and early third quarter is about like setting the tone, establishing control, stamping your identity on the game, right? Like even if you have bad offensive possessions, they're not bad enough to completely submarine your defense. Even if you're going to have some defensive mistakes, they cannot completely destroy your offense, and you can't pick up 3 fouls in the first 2 minutes of the third quarter to where now you're in foul trouble and now they're in the bonus early. Like, it's about setting the tone, getting comfortable, getting your feet wet, figuring out what the other team is doing, and not spotting the other team 8 points. And that just has not been the case. It just hasn't been the case this year. They're losing the thread like early in games.
Yeah. Opposing defenses having Najee Marshall to really sag off of because Najee has not proven he can make threes yet. In addition to obviously Dallas plays with a non-shooting center, that stood out to me, especially in the third quarter. I thought Dallas's bad offensive execution made the Warriors defense look, like the best in the league. I do think the Warriors were, had a good defensive idea coming out of halftime, and they executed well on that. But it should not have looked that dismal and that bad for the Mavericks offense. It just looked like they were, it looked like everything, everybody was sinking into the paint. Everything was compact, and they did not look like they had ideas about how to break that down, how to generate good shots out of that.
And it's interesting because you started to bring up Najee Marshall, of course, who was starting the year coming off the bench, has had to be in the starting lineup as of late because of the injury to P.J. Washington. Hopefully we'll be able to see him coming back here within the next couple of games, 2 or 3 games here. But that's one of the things that we've also learned so far this year, too. We've lauded what we thought be the deep bench of the Dallas Mavericks. Unfortunately, that has not come to fruition so far through the first 11 games of the year either, which is ironic that we're talking about this here because Quentin Grimes, I thought last night, played one of his better games so far as a Maverick, especially on the defensive end. You felt like it was his overall best game as a Dallas Maverick.
Oh, easily, yeah.
And the defense that he played, especially on Steph Curry in the first half, I mean, he wound up playing, 29 minutes last night in the game. Those, I think, were the kinds of things that we were hoping to see in the early portion of the year, how much we have lauded what Grimes could do in terms of a three-point shooter and a 3-and-D guy. You saw some of that last night in a much better way against Golden State.
Can I dump a little positivity in here?
Yeah.
Grimes potentially, maybe, sort of, kind of breakout, establishing himself kind of game. It took Najee a few less games, obviously, than Grimes. Mm-hmm. Najee's been cooking for a couple weeks now, but, it took him a little bit, but now he's sort of established himself. Maybe he's comfortable. Klay, I still think the first quarter is like a little too much forcing for me, but like generally he's been shooting fine, playing fine. So like you're starting to, Luka for the most part is moving a little better than he was at the beginning of the year. Lively's back. PJ might be back. Maxi's available, not playing, but hopefully he'll be back. So like maybe it's coming together a little bit.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that it's 5 and 6 because again, they're this close. This is the most like copium thing, but they're this close to 8-3. The Mavs are 0-3 or 0-4 in 3-point games. Phoenix is 4-0. Denver's 4-1. The difference between 12th place and first place is this.
Yeah.
And so if it takes a few weeks of this struggle bus stuff to figure it all out and come together and then, go on a little bit of a run here, hey, I guess that's a worthy trade, but only if the positive trends keep on going up. This is 11th offense and 11th best defense. Like this is the statistical profile of a contender. Granted, a lot of that is beating up on bad teams, but hey, that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. If you win big against the bad teams, you don't lose to them. Dallas has yet to lose to a bad team. Again, Houston is the right there, but Houston's been good. I think Houston's a good team. You beat up on the bad teams, and then you play tighter games against better teams. And I don't think that the teams who are undefeated in the clutch are going to go undefeated all season. Maybe they finish 60%, not 40%. I don't think teams that are haven't won in the clutch, like Dallas, is that correct? Have all their wins been blowouts?
One clutch win.
Okay. Well, I don't think teams that are 1-6 now.
1-5.
1-5, yeah.
1-5. I don't think that they're going to go. I think they're going to win more than 17% of the games.
I hope.
I'm trying to do quick math on that.
No, that's right. Yeah, about 16-17%
I hope
of
so.
the games in terms of the clutch so far.
Bobby, look at me. They're going to win more clutch games than that.
That's a guarantee. That's a Tim Cato guarantee.
We'll take it.
They're going to win a higher percentage. And yeah, at the end of the season, barring some insane outliers, good teams are going to be between 40 and 50 and 60%. in terms of winning clutch games. Better teams should be a little bit higher on that, but this is still the markings of a good team. I'm not going to come out here and say this is, they have not earned title contender. I agree. Top 10 in offensive defense, that is the mark of a title contender. They haven't earned that yet, but they have earned the fact that they still have all the markings. They still have all of the reasons to believe that this is and will be a very good team in the NBA. They just have to go out and do it, which that's been the whole issue. But I think it's coming, and yes, I really do think that these coming 4 games, if I don't see that version of the Mavericks, I will start changing my tone and my tune. My tone and my tune. Those
Tone
both
and
both
tune,
are
all
things.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll change my tan too.
I'm going to climb
When
into a
not-
tomb.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Let's take our final break here on the DLLS Mavs podcast as we have Tim Cato. Tim, are you joining? Are you staying with us? You getting out of here? You getting out of here?
I'm gonna pop off, but
Okay.
it was a pleasure joining you guys, and I will see you in studio tomorrow. A studio that I forgot what it looks like. It's been so long.
Well, we appreciate all of your intrepid reporting on the road and look forward to your return here in Dallas as the Mavericks finish up the road. We appreciate you, man.
See y'all soon.
Bye, Tim.
There he goes, our Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato joining us here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. Let's go ahead and take our final break here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. How do you cope after a bad loss? Because we've been doing a lot of that lately around here, not just with the Mavs, but all of our DFW sports teams. How do you cope after a bad loss? Jump in the chat and let us know. We'll discuss it here coming up here on the DLLS Mavs podcast.
But first, if you want to feel good, if you want to cope, if you want to move on from heartbreak and complete and utter devastation, there's no better place in the world to do it than the DLLS Die Hard Discord Lounge.
Oh, that's right. That's a great place to go. For
Just
sure.
positive vibes channel. Hey, channels for each team. We got channels for music and movies, and
Wrestling. If you want to talk
TV
some
and
pro wrestling with
and
me,
all sorts
you
of
can
stuff.
definitely
Now,
do that.
all of the coolest people I know are on that Discord server, and the best way, the only way to join the Discord server is to become a diehard. If you go to alldls.com/diehard or click the link in the description below, it will take you to a website where you will pledge to pay us $7 a month for a year. And in exchange, you'll get access to those good vibes. You'll get access to the Discord server. You'll get a free shirt. You'll get a discount on future shirts that you want to buy. You'll get a discount on events. You'll also get access to our entire website with all the premium written content, post-game analysis, features, columns, opinions, film breakdowns of all 4 major pro teams in town, this being the Cowboys, Rangers, Stars, and Mavs, with also coverage coming for the Wings and FC Dallas whenever those seasons get fired up in the spring. So there's a lot of stuff going on around here at DLLS Sports. All the stuff on YouTube is going to be free forever, but if you want to support what we're doing here, that is the best, most important way that you can do it. So I just want to shout out Sarah and Steven, who are our new diehard, or the newest diehards. They both signed up today. So shout out to the 2 of you and to everyone else that has joined our mighty legion of diehards. We got a lot of fun stuff planned, actually. We had a little meeting about that today. We got some stuff coming down the pipe for diehards, no matter what sport you like. So anyway, that's it. You should do that. Just become a diehard.
alldlls.com/diehard. Become a diehard member today. Show up that physical diehard card as well. Tag us on social media and we'll shout you out here on the show. Appreciate you becoming a diehard member, supporting us here at DLLS Sports. How do you cope with a loss or losses or a season of losing, Dallas? Talking about the Cowboys. And let us know in the chat as well. I do want to update you on a quick note coming from the NBA when it comes to your Dallas Mavericks, a scheduling note. The NBA has announced that the Mavericks, who will be hosting the Memphis Grizzlies on December 3rd, will now be televised on TNT with the game time changed to, check this out, gentlemen, 6:30 p.m. An early start time for the Dallas Mavericks when they host the Memphis Grizzlies.
We got Sarah in the chat. Sarah, the newest diehard. Shout out Sarah.
Hey, shout out to, let's throw Sarah's comment here in the chat. Shout out to Sarah.
Shout out Sarah.
Appreciate you. Way to go, Sarah. But yeah, December 3rd, Memphis at Dallas will be televised on TNT, and that game will be at 6:30. We love early start time.
Plan accordingly for traffic.
Yes, plan accordingly for traffic, but we love an early start time.
Kevin, so this morning I woke up and was like, man, losing sucks.
No, I'm gonna say it like how Bobby says it. Losing sucks.
It's true. You got to fight. The S's have to fight. It sucks. And how do you get over it? Now, I had a long conversation with Mark Followell, the great Mark Followell, about this.
Shout out to Mark.
Whenever the Mavs went 24-58 and every game was a loss, and we're like, man, how do you do it? How do you just how do you move on? But especially now that expectations are high and every time they lose, it's a gut punch. And 3 straight one-shot, one-possession losses in a row is man, this is toughest test for the toughest soldiers, but I'm not that tough, So I went to the Discord and I asked diehards, hey, how do y'all, this is for the show, how do y'all get over tough losses? And I just wanted to share some responses and to see how, maybe chatters now can relate to it. And Kevin, maybe you can relate to these too. So Elliot said, after a tough loss, well, I play in a basketball league, so usually getting out on the court myself helps. Unless I play awful and then I just continue to stew in my anger and sadness. So I feel like it's a little
channeling
risky.
the team that you're watching who's losing and channel that into your play. Okay,
yeah, it's a little risky to do that. But if you win, maybe that washes away the sins of your team. But yeah, some distraction there I think is good. Ben, who's a big time chatter, big time supporter of the channel. Ben says, to get over a loss, I listen to y'all now, but I just try to remember that it's sports and it can't affect my whole mood. In the words of J Kidd, no one died today.
That's very true.
Maintain some perspective.
Shout out to my guy K-Lou, who's in the chat with Dope Content Entertainment LLC with the $5 super chat. Love the content, guys. The Mavs will be fine. Hey, look at you with the positivity, my guy K-Lou. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, we need a little positive vibe around here.
I hope they're right. I hope they're right.
Same. Because let me tell you, watching the Cowboys get their ass whooped every single week, the way that the Mavericks have played so far through the first 11 games, it's been not so great around here. But at the same time, you're hoping that this team, in terms of the Mavericks in particular, get through these early season struggles and pains and be able to figure it out. From Sarah, how not to get over it. Going to Twitter and searching Mavs like I did last night.
Doom scrolling is never the answer.
That's not the answer.
When all else fails, you got to log off.
Exactly, for sure.
Tim Cato's burner, who is definitely not Tim Cato, popped in the Discord and said, to get over a tough loss, I make a podcast with you and hopefully find some reasons to spin this stretch of losses into some form of optimism for us. Now, I know that Tim Cato's burner is lying because Tim Cato's burner capitalizes letters, whereas Tim Cato does not.
That's true. It's all lowercase for the actual
don't lie.
Tim Cato.
Don't go on the internet and tell lies.
Please do that.
Soul Child says, I disconnect and just avoid all sports content for a couple hours. As much as I would like to say that it doesn't affect my mood, it honestly does at times. So disconnecting from Mavs talk helps me put it aside and focus on the important things.
I need Ben to explain this particular comment. He says, I just love channeling my inner J Kidd.
Oh, because he said nobody died.
Oh, okay. He said nobody died. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I was like, how are we doing that? But I see what you're doing there, Ben.
Yeah, so Soul Child does just disconnect completely. Just unplug from the world.
It's
focus on your family or whatever. Who even does that?
Yeah, like have some balance in your life. Who does that these days?
The problem though, Kevin, is that game last night ended at like midnight. Who are you supposed to talk to at midnight?
Me and you can talk to each other and talk to Tanner. You can talk to us. Exactly. That's the thing. And that's what really irks me is when you have a loss like that and it's also not going to bed until like 1:45 in the morning. So you have to stew on that on the way home and then like think about it kind of when you get up the next morning too, because it just happened like several hours ago, kind of like how we're doing today. But at the same time, we appreciate all of you who helped us get through it as well, because y'all were in there showing out last night in the chat as well. So really appreciate all of you hanging out with us as well.
I got a couple more.
Yeah,
just
for
a couple more. So Mark says, I watch horror movies and listen to historical podcasts about bad people. Then the game seems much more in perspective.
All right, that's a way to do it.
So I guess just learning about the
the atrocities
the
of humanity.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
what?
if it works, and maybe some slasher films, you got to watch some. Hopefully, only simulated violence is enough to say, hey, it's not that bad. They could have lost by more.
That is perspective.
Yeah,
it's an interesting way to channel that perspective, but I got it.
Think about like that scene in The Dark Knight Rises whenever the football field collapses under Heinz Ward.
That is a wild scene.
It's like,
man,
that happened at kickoff. like, imagine if that basically is what the fourth quarter was like last night, 3 nights in a row now. So maybe that happening at tip-off would be good.
Speaking of Dark Knight Rises, you know what the final 3 minutes and 10 seconds felt like with Stephen Curry? It felt like Bane beating the brakes off Batman and like, you know, he was taunting him and beating his ass the entire time. And it's just like, Bane, you don't have to taunt the guy while you're beating him up. It felt like that's what Steph was doing. You know, he saw Klay Thompson hit the shimmy a little bit earlier in the game. Then Steph said, oh, I got something for that over the final 3 minutes, you know, with 12 straight points to end the game, you know, doing the night. It was just a lot of extra. It made me upset.
Paul says he shaves his lawn after losses. He's getting awfully close to the dirt.
We do chores.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Brian listened to podcasts about the Jaguars and remembers that the Mavs could always be worse.
The Jaguars are so bad.
The Mavs have already won more games than the Jags will this season, which is pretty tough.
Why won't the Jags just move to London already?
The last one is from, I don't know if this is C-Leb or Kleb. I don't really know how to, or C-L-E-B. I don't know. But they say, I'm just glad that we aren't Pelicans fans this year.
Woo!
I feel like that is the perspective we all need.
That or Sixers fans, because I don't know if you saw the report already. Joel Embiid and Paul George are not playing in their next game. Joel Embiid literally just made his season debut last night, and he's not playing in his next game along with Paul George. The Sixers, Pelicans, there's some teams that are really going through it with their injuries right now.
Pelicans are in tough shape.
Oh, they're in hell.
It's like they're in
Pelicans are in hell right now.
I mean, no, like we sit around here and say, like, oh, dude, like no Lively, no Washington, no Maxey, no Dante. That's your entire bench. Imagine that, but like no Luka, no Kyrie. Like, imagine missing all of your players.
Exactly. That's exactly what the Pelicans are going through.
It could be worse.
It could be a lot worse. Or as Alex says, it could be the Bucks.
Could be the Bucks, where the one saving grace is, don't worry, Bucks fans, it will be over soon.
All right. We're going to leave that where it is. I like to cope by watching pro wrestling. That's the way I cope.
Is that how you get over it?
I watch old pro wrestling highlights. Yeah. The Attitude Era, it gets me through. Watching The Rock and Stone Cold and everybody else. I'm a huge wrestling fan, so that helps get me through.
You know what I do? It always changes. It just changes. But what I do is I just go home, or if it's a road game and I'm already at home, but now I'm at the studio after the game. But, you know, go home, turn off the sports world, watch some YouTube, watch something I like, play a video game or so. Just like,
okay.
I just go on, you know, just do what I would normally do. Hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. I just live my, you know, and it's kind of like, it's like, whatever. It's compartmentalization. You're annoyed, you're frustrated, but also it's over. It's over. You just go have some fun.
Tanner, what do you do? How do you cope with a loss?
Listen to y'all talk and feel better, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, that's sweet. Tanner.
Does it make you feel better, or
That's
does it make
sweet,
you feel
Tanner.
worse?
No, it makes me feel a lot better. Yeah.
That's sweet.
And then talking with guys in here, you know, we're all in this together.
Well, you're not having to mute them or block them up in here.
Yeah.
At the same
It is
time.
like it's all important to keep in mind, though. It's like, you know, I mean, because it's a long. See, now this is the advice that Mark Followell gave me, and this was on the record. All right, this is on the Old Numbers on the Boards podcast. Great show. Followell would say, you know, like, it's just a long season.
It is.
It's a long. You're gonna lose so many games, and there will be gut punches, and they will fail to live up to expectations just as often as they exceed them. And it's gonna be, you know, but like, you gotta just try and stay like this. You know, you just gotta try, because
don't get too high, don't get too low.
Yeah, there's just so many losses, and if you go down the if you go down the vortex of depression and nihilism after a loss in November, then what are you going to do whenever they lose another one like this in March or in May or in June?
Probably do the same thing.
Yeah, and it's like you just can't do that to yourself. You know, like, you can't do that to yourself, especially like, you know, as professionals, we have to talk about this. So we just can't say, well, this sucks. This is hopeless, because then why would you watch? You know, but like, as someone covering the team, being around the team, as someone who's following the team, it's like, if you do sort of succumb to the hopelessness of it all, then why would you watch? You know, why is it fun? If it's not going to be fun, then like, why do you do it? You know, so like, you have to keep a little bit of hope. You have to keep some positivity. You have to say, flush it, move on. You have to. You know, now there are real issues that they're going to work through. There's 11 games of stacked up failures that have been consistent that they got to improve. They have to improve these 5 or 10 things if they want to get to where they want to go. But they have time to.
They do. And as Harvey Dent once said in The Dark Knight, the night is darkest just before the dawn.
I heard in Game of Thrones the night is dark and full of terrors.
Jeez, Bobby, I was trying to end it on some positivity.
Sorry.
Good gracious, man. And you just...
Well, they held the gate. They held the gate.
Thanks, Bobby.
There's a little optimism.
Hopefully there'll be some optimism tomorrow when your Mavericks finish up the 3-game road trip when they take on the Utah Jazz. We will have our pregame show beginning at a specified time that I literally just forgot as the time of
Who even knows? It's a 8 p.m. tip-off, so it's a 7:30
7:30 pregame show right here on DLLS
Central time.
Mavs. That's right. So join us tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. for the DLLS Mavs pregame show as the Mavericks take on the Utah Jazz to finish up their 3-game road trip before they come home and take on Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs over the weekend. We appreciate our guy Tim Cato joining us from San Francisco. He'll be back in our DLLS studios tomorrow as the Mavericks get ready to take on the Utah Jazz. So for Tim, Bobby, I'm Kevin. We've been DLLS Mavs. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. for the DLLS Mavs pregame show. Y'all be good. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.